This is old home week for me. I've been covering the digital disruption of media, of major media, especially since 1996. I started writing a weekly newsletter called Min's New Media Report that I'm sure none of you ever remember, but it was one of the first in the space to talk about this transition. So I've been watching it all along. I wish I could start this event by telling you a lot of good news. I wish I could, but I can't. The story of digital disruption for the last 20, 25 years, especially with traditional media, is one of decline and diffusion. As we know, media has given up its distribution, it's given up its ad revenue and its ad share, and it's given up its mastery over context to aggregators and redistributors. As we come into 2020, however, at least we are starting to see some trends peak, if not shift quite yet. For instance, the growth of the duopoly in market share of online advertising is leveling, at least. In 2019, according to eMarketer, Google's share of digital ad spend will fall from to 37.2% from 38.2% last year, while Facebook will slip slightly from 22.1% to 21.8%. The winner is not the rest of us, the rest of media. The winner is actually who? Amazon, which will have seen its ad revenue double from 4% to 8% share in just a year. And in fact, by the way, from all of our other coverage of the marketing side, I can tell you, you're going to get even more competition from other retailers who are also coming into the space and have decided they want to be publishers too and leverage their data and their mind share with consumers to turn their websites into ad revenue machines. And even on social, we see at best a leveling, maybe a reallocation. For instance, a couple of next slide. Want to load my deck? There we go. Okay. Many of you may have seen that the famous Mary Meeker, investment banker analyst Mary Meeker, put out her mega deck of 300 slides the other day. Just a few insights that really popped for us. Among the insights, time spent on social media appears to have peaked at about 2.4 hours per day, with growth plummeting to near zero in the last 2 years. We're also starting to see Facebook in mild decline just in a year, as are most of the messaging apps in particular. Less than a third of users are visiting Facebook every day. Note, however, that both YouTube and Instagram, the very visually driven platforms, are growing. And of course, Facebook is not giving up too much of its ad revenue because Instagram is picking up the slack. But we're starting to see, for instance, YouTube is now approaching Facebook in time share online. The duopoly, while it's still growing in terms of its ad revenue and share of market, or not its share of market, but it's actually growing in revenue. The other platforms are growing slightly faster. Facebook's growth now is being fueled principally by Instagram. But the outlook for paid media and direct, however, is at best mixed. Reuters Institute of Digital Media the other day put out a report about the state of paid media. And one of the things that they noted is that we are at a point in the US where about 16% of internet users are now paying for news in some form or another. But what's interesting about this is that after the legendary Trump bump, in end of 2016, early 2017, that has leveled. So we haven't really seen growth there. And also the cohort of people who are paying for news and media online is quite narrow. The demographic is very well educated, very well heeled. So far, it still looks like a rather narrow group of winners here, including Washington Post and the New York Times. And beyond that, we're not seeing a lot of diffusion in the revenue. And in a paid media market, one of the problems is everybody's competing with Netflix. Other types of news and content are competing with entertainment, which simply draws the most money. All of which sets the stage for us. As many of you know, I sent out a survey a number of days ago. I try to open all of these events by hearing from you, since these events, the Insider Summits, are really about peer-to-peer sharing. I want to start with your voices, level set some of the attitudes, some of the ideas that are coming into this event from you. So, for instance, I asked, what's the fastest growing revenue stream in the last year? I got I think what's always interesting in this summit about the response to this question is it's a wide, wide range. And some of them are conflicting, but I'm not going to go through all of these. These decks will be online so that you can see them if you want to go back and refer back to them. I quote a lot of you in this deck. But, you know, everything from events to subscriptions to organic video to Google AMP, which some of you have seen a lot of good performance from, and OTT, which we'll be talking about on the third day of the summit in particular. In-stream video, branded and custom content, which we'll be focusing on tomorrow, but also and again, interesting that this attendee reported 20% gain, but the mix has moved substantially towards native custom content plays from straight advertising. Also, there is one of the things that I noticed, and we'll be talking about programmatic tomorrow, is very varied answers about programmatic. A number of people who feel that private marketplaces and programmatic guaranteed are growing revenues, but others are voicing disappointment with it. So it's interesting, the ways in we're going to have to talk about the ways in which different companies and different publishers are implementing these and the different performance that they're seeing from these streams. And also sponsored content and video production. Affiliate sales, we'll be talking about this tomorrow too, the ways in which affiliate sales is starting to evolve and the ways in which changes in that ecosystem have forced publishers to rethink the ways in which they come at affiliate sales. I asked, what's the most disappointing revenue stream in the last year? Print, for a number of you. Though, interestingly, there are a couple who actually said that print is at least leveling, if not showing some signs of life and growth. Direct mobile, programmatic guaranteed. Again, several people think that programmatic guaranteed was not doing well for them. And off-platform revenue, we're going to be talking about this across, I know, in several conversations, me with my panel later this morning, but also we'll be talking tomorrow at length about distribution strategies and the different revenue that people are seeing from some of these platforms now. Digital advertising, legacy print holding up quite well. Slowest growth in private auctions, again, and also podcasting. I asked for the fastest growing and most promising distribution or audience development channel. And again, saw quite a range here, but YouTube, for many of you, we're going to be talking to several people tomorrow about YouTube and on the third day, on Saturday, about the video channel and how it's growing. But also a number of people, there's going to be some interesting discussion over the next couple of days, I think, about Google and search and the ways in which search algorithms are actually changing people's strategy and challenging a lot of brands, especially middle-tier content brands. Google AMP, I heard this a number of times, that Google AMP, especially in concert with organic search, has been a powerful driver. Social, again, we'll be talking about OTT and interestingly, some syndication relationships still doing especially well. One of the things that I heard across talking to a lot of you over the last couple of months, but also in these surveys, is a number of minor and relatively unknown distribution partners and apps that are starting to pop and show real performance, which is going to be an interesting trend to watch. Flipboard, for instance. Haven't heard about or from Flipboard for a while, but several people mentioned Flipboard as an area of growth for them. Also, we're going to have to be talking about Apple News. Social channels, Instagram. Experiential and event activation has gained momentum. We've talked about this in past summits. We didn't focus on it this time, but our event revenue, and especially attached to podcasting, has been an especially good growth area for a lot of publishers. I asked about the programmatic advertising business in particular, got a lot of range of interesting answers to this one and how people are implementing programmatic. Again, we'll be drilling a lot into this tomorrow. But the idea that programmatic guaranteed has worked for a lot of publishers. The idea and the ability to package this across into other pieces of the inventory and either have training salespeople to sell this more effectively as a part of a package deal or to combine programmatic and direct. Again, and some of these private marketplaces, overall yield and eCPMs, OTT and video. Sales team, and again, as I mentioned, sales team and education, being able to integrate direct and programmatic selling has seemed to become more effective, and we're at a stage where now that's happening a lot more effectively. I asked about what's the biggest challenge or obstacle you face in increasing company revenue. This was an interesting series of and again, a great range of diagnoses of what the key challenge is. Everything from less allocation to publisher direct to cookieless future and data privacy concerns. We'll be talking about that on day 3. We're going to be talking about that directly. And the time suck of some of these programs. In fact, I hear this a lot in talking to publishers. And we'll be talking to some degree about this tomorrow with branded content. The amount of time and effort it takes simply to put some of these more lucrative advertising programs together that really distinguish especially marquee brands from others. Scaling network of site. Streamline reporting internally, and content discovery and audience retention. Again, I'll put this deck online so you can see this. Again, and this sort of drafts off of the other point, the pressure to be innovative and the ways in which advertisers are really putting pressure on publishers to come up with something innovative. And again, tie that back to the previous example. How can you do that at margins and really make money off of those programs, really than simply being fancy case studies that you can show off about how creative you are. Keeping up and managing various opportunities available to us. We'll be talking some degree about this as well across the next few days, about managing all of those distribution relationships and how it's being handled internally and how you make those choices. And again, and this actually is one of the themes that we'll pick up this morning in our opening panel, which is how you actually manage all of those multiple revenue streams that everybody's chasing. I asked about the oligopoly and attitudes about it. It's interesting the range that I saw of those who feel that yes, it needs to be broken up. Yes, obviously it's the major threat, but how do we handle it? And I got a range from yes, let's go ahead and do it, to no, it's just going to create more problems for the rest of us, and it's going to be hard either to break them up or to heavily regulate them. So anyway, that is the, I just wanted to take the temperature, get a sense of, and bring out some of the discussions. You'll be hearing more of this in the roundtable. A few notes. For those of you who are new to the Publishing Summit, how many of you have not been here before? Okay. Let me give you a quick rundown of the summit rules and the basic spirit of our summits. Everything that we put on stage is being live streamed. It's on the record. We report on it. We blog on it. We archive it. We'll report on it afterwards. If you have colleagues back at the home office you want to ping to tune in, do so. If you go to the main site page, you'll get a link to the live stream, and they can view it at home. And we'll be posting the videos for most of these sessions probably by the end of the day or tomorrow morning, so you can reference them right away, also most of the decks. When we come off stage at noon for the roundtables, then we're off the record. And the idea of these roundtables, and I can't urge you enough to take part in these roundtables. They are the heart of our summits. It's where the content on stage really becomes conversations, where you really get to talk about how this stuff relates to you, what your challenges are, and share ideas. So I urge you, don't run out and take that phone call at noon or go back to the room and do a bit of work. The heart of this really is the roundtable. These discussions really resonate throughout the day. And today, our focus really here is on, and now moving forward for publishing, is data-driven content and data-driven publishing. And what does that mean? As data starts moving more deeply into organizations, as we start seeing the ways in which data can inform not only the ad picture, but audience segmentation, audience gathering and distribution, and also, of course, editorial. That's the project that Mike Smith is doing. Our keynote speaker today is the Chief Data Officer at Hearst Magazines. I think many of you are familiar with Mike. He has been a fixture at Hearst for a number of years as the Chief Operating Officer, but now his job is to put data at the center of a publisher. What does that mean when we start seeing data informing all aspects of the business, from the ways in which it's putting together its audience segmentation to how it's putting together its ad packages, but also how it's informing editorial. As I said, Mike has been at Hearst for a number of years as a Chief Operating Officer. His task now is to pull a massive number of brands together into a centralized data hub that can serve all of those interests. Please welcome Mike Smith.
feel overdressed. I'm hoping that during my 20 minutes and at the end a Q&A, I can cover topics that touch upon some of what Steve just took us through, because I thought that Steve's summary remarks of the content you're going to be discussing over the course of the conference are both exciting and exactly much of what I get to work on at Hearst, and very relevant topics. So I look forward to getting into as many as I can in this time, and I would welcome your questions not just at the end, but throughout. I would love to make sure that I contribute to your thought process in terms of how you run your business. We're pretty open at Hearst. I've been at Hearst for 6 years. I work for a gentleman named Troy Young, who's the president of the magazine company. Formerly was 6 years ago hired as the president of the digital part of the magazine company. So I work very closely with Troy. He's a great experimenter. We are constantly tinkering with things and then measuring to see what resulted, the positive and the negative. Now, 6 years ago when I joined, my principal focus was programmatic. I think this will follow me. My principal focus was programmatic. And so that was, at the time, the center of my life, the center of my domain skill set, or developing domain skill set. Prior to that, I had spent 14 years at Forbes Media in their digital group as more or less a general manager, working on sales support, working with ad networks pre-programmatic, and then, of course, when programmatic came along, focusing most of my work on developing that new line of revenue. And I'll tell you a quick story that may be useful and hopefully inspiring. I think about it from time to time. At Forbes, we had used an ad server that was not DFP, and for many years, like a decade. And that was then, as it would be now, atypical. But we were very comfortable with the special support we got from 24/7 Real Media using that ad server. And from time to time, we'd revisit, why aren't we on DFP like everybody else? All the advertisers deal with other publishers that are on DFP. We're the exception. When a new CEO came in, a fellow named Mike Perlis, he challenged that notion. And I was very dug in. I was very committed to the system we were using. And I'll get to my point. I was inflexible, in a word. I was inflexible. I was so vested in what we were using that my bias was to rationalize why we shouldn't change. And as I reflect back, boy, am I happy that we pivoted and changed, not because we weren't being served well by the great company 24/7, which later became part of WPP, led by Dave Moore, but because DFP was a very critical piece of the infrastructure to take advantage of what we weren't sure but later learned was coming, which was the onslaught of programmatic. We were still struggling with the fact that and I've been in the display advertising business for 20 years. So I would say in the first third of that, publishers and digital publishers dominated. There weren't many native pure play digital publishers at the time. I worked for one for a year, TheStreet.com, but mostly pure play's been a phenomenon of recent times. But we were struggling with the fact that ad networks during the second half of the last decade were really, in a way, cleaning our clocks and going to the same agencies with a better offer where they would aggregate inventory, and then they would use technology to target audience segments, whereas we had historically always sold context. We sold the context of the different sections we would publish. So anyway, we changed over, And it was a very fortunate thing we did, because we got to participate in what became a very big programmatic business. And so programmatic at the time, and then skipping to my work at Hearst, which is why I was hired at Hearst originally. Programmatic. Hearst wanted to capitalize on programmatic revenue, which will bring us to data shortly. We developed, in addition to our very capable sales team, an open exchange, which was self-service, which was the polar opposite of direct sales on insertion orders. It was self-service. It was perceived, often correctly, as low CPMs. It was perceived as the buyer's in control because they're essentially trafficking. And it was also perceived, and I would say misperceived in retrospect, as something that would completely undermine our direct business. But who knew then? It could have been anybody's guess. But here we are today, and I will tell you that we have a collection of very healthy revenue streams that include direct sales insertion orders. That business for us is growing. Digital, direct, insertion order-based business, trafficked by ad ops, let's call it the traditional way, is growing for Hearst. In addition, what's growing, and Steve mentioned you're going to get into this in some detail later today or tomorrow, the part of programmatic where salespeople and sales support people, sales activation people participate, whether it's non-guaranteed deals or guaranteed deals, Steve mentioned programmatic direct specifically, that's growing for us too. And last, the open exchange. The open exchange has always only ever grown for us. So we take an approach with our programmatic business, and I'm really speaking to the first 2 years of my 6 at Hearst, that we're open for business on all of those fronts. If an advertiser, if any one of our advertisers wants to buy us one way or the other, or all of them, which is most typically the case, we are available on insertion orders with full service. We are available through programmatic direct automated guaranteed with reserved inventory. We are available with private auction, whether it's fixed price or a variable price. And we're also available on the open exchange without restriction. We do not implement floor prices. We do not implement blocks. We do not prevent any of our advertisers from accessing us in any of those ways. The only blocks that we implement in our system are the kind of blocks you would expect us to implement as it relates to very questionable type advertisers that you don't want running media on your site. So that was a major effort in 2013 and 14. At the same time, we were developing another way and product suite for our direct sales team to go to market and complement display ad sales. And that was native advertising, specifically branded content. And that became, for us, very, very big business. So that too is also growing. Branded content programs are very nearly a part of every ad sale that we do. It's not 100%, but it's close to 100%. Now, again, I'm talking digital. I'm not talking about the print side of the business, which is for me new. I've been working with our print colleagues only for the past 9 months since Troy took this new role on. And I'll speak to how our data studio is working in the service not only of our digital business, but also of our print business, and not just the commercial side of Hearst, but also the editorial side of Hearst. Let me pause for 1 second. Are there any questions? I would welcome any questions. Yes, sir.
Thanks for talking about this. How do you see audience and data throughout programmatic guarantee and private marketplaces? Are you activating on those differently? differently, or are there different pieces that you can use? Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes?
Also, tell us.
Hi there. My name's Scott Messer. I work for Leaf Group. We're a
Okay,
publisher.
Scott.
So I'm curious, inside programmatic guaranteed or programmatic direct versus private marketplaces or versus direct sales, how are you using audience data, specifically segments, differently across those three tactics?
Yes, I love that question. Because I really appreciate that question because I think I can offer you something useful. You'll be the judge. I was very frustrated for the first, now I'm going to look at a 6-year timeline that I've been at Hearst, okay? And DMPs came onto the scene approximately, I'm going to guess 10 years ago, okay? And I mark personally the 10-year anniversary of programmatic as January 1st, 2020, which is ironically also CCPA. But RTB, as a reminder, and I've studied this, I published a book on this. I worked on it for 4 years. So we've interviewed 400 ad tech executives. The anniversary of real-time bidding is January 1st, 2020. So DMPs were birthed along that spectrum. And I felt that initially publishers there was a bit of selling fear, meaning your data's leaking, other companies are benefiting from it. You need a DMP to put a moat around it and protect it so that you can sell it and benefit from it. And we tried in earnest those first bunch of years to put that into practice. And big fail, I would say. We didn't make money, additive money, appending data to either our direct or our programmatic guaranteed, which was fledgling at that time, or our programmatic non-guaranteed, whether it was preferred deals fixed price or private auction variable price. And we certainly didn't make money appending our data to the open exchange. So we took a view that we tried, maybe we'll revisit it, but essentially the buyers brought their data. And something magical happened directionally 2 years ago. And now we're making a lot of money appending data to all of those buying systems. Direct sold IO, specifically what you asked about, programmatic direct, and not yet open exchange. But what we do is, I'm not permitted to name an advertiser, but I can certainly refer to categories. And you can imagine Hearst does a lot of business with the beauty advertiser category. And there are some incredibly sophisticated, not only agencies, but also advertiser brands that have data people that can work with our data people to activate what you described. A particular beauty advertiser said to us, and this about 6 months ago, we're going to give you, Hearst, our CRM file. We're going to anonymize it through LiveRamp, which is one of the clean room third-party systems. And then what you'll do for us, hopefully, is you'll take that anonymized data that is our list of people who buy products from us, and you'll run it against your audience utilization. You'll match them. You'll learn what they do. Like, how are they different? How are they unique? How are they special? And then we'd like you not only to send us back what our people are doing when they're in your network, because we see 300 million people a month. So there's a huge match. But also, what about the people who are not in our CRM file that look exactly like what you're learning? And so we then ship that data back. So we've got folks on our staff who are trained data scientists. I went back to school. I'm in a grad program. I haven't been in college in 30 years. And I wasn't that great of a student then. But I'm there now learning data mining and machine learning simply so that I can work effectively with the folks who really know these processes. And so that we can bring that back to the beauty advertiser in this particular case. I have many examples. And then they can take that data, set it up on their deal IDs, their programmatic direct deal IDs, and the spend goes up. You can see it. It's not table stakes to keep things flat. It actually drives growth. And in another case, same advertiser, they said, in addition to sending our CRM file, we conducted this survey. We built this survey instrument that came back and taught us the 7 classifications of the types of customers we have. Because of all our customers, you can classify them into different types. We want you to take those classifications, do the same data science taxonomy exercise, and come back to us. They're actually using that data set to buy through insertion orders and to inform their branded content programs. So I feel that that data by the sell side publishers has become real, finally. And that the value of the DMP, which we always questioned, if we spend, whatever, $50,000 a month, I'm making this up, are we even making that? I can tell you with confidence, we are crushing that. And it's a consequence of the nature of the question that you raised. So thank you for that question. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to add to that? It's very exciting for us that our data is creating value for our advertisers. And what I described is the part of our data that is loosely characterized as anonymous web data. Now, there are efforts underway to de-anonymize web users, which I think for publishers we all need to be careful about. We need to be careful to not only follow the developing laws, both in Europe and the United States, but also the basic ethics of what's right and wrong. And I'm not rendering judgment. I haven't studied it yet enough. But why that's important is because I'll pivot to another topic. I'll jump through a few slides. Hearst is best learned about. It's a giant, wonderful company. I feel very blessed to have come from a wonderful company at Forbes and then now at another amazing company, Hearst. It's a very big company, and also in terms of media audience, quite huge, as you can see on this list. So one of the many companies in the Hearst portfolio is a company called CDS Global. Some of the folks in attendance may do business with CDS Global. As of August, when Troy took on his new role, that company I'm now accountable for. What do they do? For print, for magazines, they are, for most publishers, the fulfillment company. They're the customer service center. They answer 50,000 phone calls every day from magazine subscribers. Many, many more email interactions. And they've accumulated a massive amount of data, largely on American magazine subscribers. And so they're the database of record that is used to make sure that if you move, we send the magazine to your new home correctly. They are custodians of other people's data. It is not CDS's data. They are custodians of Hearst's data, because you can imagine Hearst Publishing is one of their bigger customers. They have many big customers. Hearst is among them. But we're working with CDS Global now very closely to match up our advertisers' objectives with that circulation data, and to start to build capabilities that not only activates anonymized web data for the purpose of ad campaigns, but also activates, with permissions, the magazine circulation data, and also having a 360 view of all of our consumers, whether they're magazine subscribers currently or in the past or not at all. And so we are really heads down on data at Hearst. And we don't ever regard, even though we've built this data studio over the last 2 years, which is the central focus of where the various data scientists work, where the taxonomists work, where data analysts work, where research and insights people work. There's directionally 75 or more people in this unit. But our data work is not a department. It is across every part of our organization. And this group and all groups have people who are skilled in quantitative analysis, and they work with each other to better inform editors and better inform our sales team internally with business operations and process. So we use, for example, Salesforce.com, but in an incredibly elegant and sophisticated way, interconnected with a lot of other systems, to self-optimize how we service our customers. So data, the data-driven objectives of Hearst the publisher, is not only about serving ad brands. It is very much about serving ad brands, but it's also about making us better in the interest of producing content for our audience and also providing great service for our clients and generating commerce. We probably don't have time to touch on all these aspects, but I will invite anyone. I'm really impressed with the wonderful list of sponsors at our event today, and we do business with a great many of them. I hope we can do business with everyone, and you're more than welcome to always reach out to me. I'm simply michaelsmith@hearst.com, no period. There's 8 of us at Hearst, so you definitely want to email michaelsmith@hearst.com. But any other questions that folks would like to ask? Yes, sir?
The data for a custom content program, for a branded content program, how you use that. I think you referenced it somewhere along the way that
I did.
That data informs even some of your custom content.
That's correct. And thank you for asking that question, because I wouldn't want to miss that aspect. Most of our direct sold programs include custom content. And just to bifurcate, we have programs that are very nearly in perpetuity, where we've built a staff of editors who focus on a brand's custom content, branded content needs. We call those agile programs. And then we have single campaigns that run 3 months, 6 months, a year. Our data studio and our broader service organizations, including advertising operations, are trained in producing some combination of weekly templatized reports. Those templates typically come to us from the agency. So the agency wants us to score not only the display ad performance, which includes traditional things like CTR, certainly viewability, which we've become very, very good at servicing. Viewability is a critical topic for all of us, and there's some variation in the standard that each buyer adopts. And so to become expert at that is important. It's foundational, and to maximally utilize your available inventory. In addition, there are, in that template, various branded content KPIs that we need to report on. And so we built a system, because the data set comes from a variety of sources. We partnered with a company called Sigma with an S. And they built a very customized system for us that in one sense is an aggregator of data from sources as fundamental as Google Analytics to sources like Moat and dozens of other sources, the ad server, the ad exchanges, and we work with pretty much every ad exchange. We work with the many header bidders for the display portion. But those statistics, as it relates to branded content, which is your question, are shared with the branded content editors, who are then informed about what's working and what's not working. We also have a group. If you were to take the timeline that I've been at Hearst, the 6 years, where the first 2 were largely programmatic, the most recent 2 and current were this gentleman's question around data on the sell side. I would say that middle piece speaks most to your question. We became experts during that period of time at the acquisition of traffic, including paid traffic, to branded content programs. And finding an audience, including on Facebook, to service these programs in ways that deliver the results our advertisers expect. We call the program Ignition when we bring them to the site, and we call the program Social Ignition when we bring the user to, for example, an Instagram instantiation of the branded content program. And it varies a lot from there, so I would appreciate the opportunity to expand on my answer offline with you, because I'd like to be helpful here. But the data that we use to inform branded content editors in the service of our advertisers is very voluminous and varied, and includes our buying activity in terms of traffic acquisition. Does that, at least in part, answer your intended question? Okay. Yes,
Mike,
sir?
how do you, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, Jen Sun from Dotdash.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your org structure. So I guess there are 2 questions here, which is in terms of how your data science team is integrated with the sales sort of side. Are they cross-functional? How large are they really? And then on the flip side, in terms of integrating, selling direct and programmatic, how is your Salesforce and revenue operation teams oriented? Are they integrated or are they completely separate?
I just want to understand what you mean by integrated versus separate. By integrated, do you mean do they report to the CRO?
I think as in, does a salesperson sell both direct and programmatic? Or is there like a person that's like, I'm direct only. If you want to buy programmatic, client goes somewhere else.
Okay, great. Thank you. For the first, until a year ago, we had a separate programmatic sales team. Then 1 year ago, and that team reported directly to me. And 1 year ago, we took that team and we moved them under the CRO, a gentleman named Todd Haskell. We wanted to do exactly what you described in your question, which is to train and empower all of our many salespeople. Because Hearst has a very large and capable media sales force. We wanted 100% of our team to be able to sell programmatic. Now, as with anything, as with any profession, you have folks on a continuum who are further along and maybe at the moment less further along and need help getting here. And so is it the case that the folks that may be somewhat less further along in this particular skill set still call in that programmatic sales team to assist with sales? Absolutely. But it's happening less frequently because the information disseminates quickly. And Hearst hires amazing people. So it's not hard to pivot.
Sorry, I know we're running short on time. Very quick question. You talk specifically here about OTT data that you derive. I'm just wondering what that is specifically that you're finding useful.
With OTT? Okay. I have something on my mind. I'm just going to say it just to complete my answer. When you hire data scientists, what I find is they need 3 to 6 months of being with the sales team, including going on sales calls, to learn the business. Because when you study data science, as I'm now doing, that is so far removed from how a media sales business works. So it'll take you 3 to 6 months. You should consider that an investment. But our data scientists, they sit, we have an open floor plan. They sit next to the CRO. So they're not this remote department. They are with Todd. They are with Todd's leadership team. They are in the brainstorming meetings. They go on sales calls. And now our data scientists, they know the media business cold. So they're able to be maximally helpful. And I felt like that was part of your question, so I ought to make sure I didn't leave that unanswered. As far as OTT, for a magazine business, now Hearst has a television company. In addition to the magazine company, there's Hearst Television, which is approximately 30 television stations throughout the United States. Our colleagues, who sell a lot of linear television spots, but also sell a lot of digital, increasingly are selling OTT, and very successfully. Their partner in that regard is a company called Data Zoo, but they have other partners as well, and they're having great success with it. Part of the media buying operation that I'm accountable for is accountable for buying media on behalf of our Hearst Television colleagues. So the different Hearst companies, Hearst Television, Hearst Newspapers, iCrossing, our ad agency, CDS Global, which I mentioned, Hearst Magazines. The way Hearst is structured is there's great synergy throughout Hearst. And the work that we do together, and actually the building that was constructed a little over 10 years ago from its design, has just, and our open floor plan, has brought us together in ways that not only do you work across the organization routinely, daily, but a lot of times, and we're very proud of this, we move people around. You may work in part of the organization for a year, and then you get moved over here, and a lot of interconnectedness. And I think it really works well. I think
Mike,
I'm over my time.
and I'm
sorry.
Mike, you'll be here for the break, so you can grab Mike and pick his brain then. Mike Smith, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
We have some announcements to make, but let me ask Melinda and our panel to make their way to the stage. I'm going to turn it over to our head of sales, John Whitfield. He's got some announcements about activities today.
All right, great. Thanks, Steve.